Hello and welcome back to our continuation of the lecture on Bruno Latour. A small recap, we looked at Bruno Latour's reconceptualization of the social, and in his actor network theory, social is looked at as an assemblage, as a collection of associations that momentarily come together in order to have a particular shape or form, right? So, in this way of looking at the social, we saw that the social appears more fluid. It is not an object like a already formed object ready for the sociologist to come to study. In fact, it is through tracing associations that one is able to make sense of this momentary association called the social. He then kind of took us through ways of engaging with, approaching the social in terms of paying attention to particular controversies. He had several chapters on deploying the controversies, and we looked at objects as agents and actors. We looked at questioning hierarchies and so on. But today what we are going to do is focus on his last 3 chapters, where he gives us 3 moves as sociologists of how to do sociology or a study of the social, that amorphous thing called the social, not even a thing, that amorphous process called the social, and I'm going to be speaking about these 3 moves. So the first move is, he calls it localizing the global. Here he says there are these given categories that we kind of assume, oh, that was a decision made at the global level. September 11 was a global act of terror. This particular event over here was a regional process. How do these categories come to be and where? So he really encourages sociologists to ask where are the structural effects actually being produced. So one needs to follow those places and actually see, and once you follow, you will see that what is thought of as global or what is thought of as national or what is thought of as regional is also happening in a localized place, right? So global is nothing but a collection of associations on the same flat field where there are several locals. Now, it does kind of appear higher up in the hierarchy, although that is only an appearance, and that is because for those moments, for that time frame, those connections that between the several locals are stronger, are more stable, but it is for that particular time frame. So in questioning this global, local, macro, micro, he writes, macro no longer describes a wider or a larger site in which the micro would be embedded, like Russian Matryoshka doll, but another equally local, equally micro place which is connected to many others through some medium transporting specific types of traces. Now, this last phrase is important to pay attention to, transporting specific types of traces. So, any action, any mediation leaves a trace, right? The hammer and the hand holding the hammer that hits the nail leaves a trace. And as sociologists, we need to trace where and how those traces travel, right? So, the job of the sociologist, in fact, he uses the metaphor, is to travel, to follow the actor, to understand these connections. And there are ways of looking at the world, there are ways of looking at the social world, and in the backdrop you would see I have put up an image of Jeremy Bentham's Panopticon, the architecture of a prison that then Michel Foucault uses as a metaphor to show us how power is all pervasive, that it is everywhere, it is a 360-degree kind of a view that power has, the central guard tower has, and can see all around, can see everything that you do, and therefore you end up internalizing good behavior, right? So that was the argument that Michel Foucault made in Discipline and Punish, but Bruno Latour shows us that that is not actually how power works. Power is also sitting in a localized place, and from that localized place, like he asks us, because he's asking us to look at who, where, how, all of that. So then when you follow it, you see that it is a group of people, it is a group of ideas, right? And then operating out of a localized particular place and having a sectional view of a small part of the world, but he says that that view is very precise. So this kind of view he calls oligopticon, and he writes, oligopticon is a networked socio-material apparatus that provides a very narrow yet extremely precise view of a small part of the whole. That said, the small part of the whole is a part of a network, right? So while each view is a partial view, they all connect across the different locations and therefore kind of are able to present what appears as a coherent whole. Now that coherent whole, that claim of universality, of generalizability, that claim of all knowing is what he calls a panoramic view. So a panorama is when they design a picture which has no gap in it, giving the spectator the powerful impression of being fully immersed in the real world. Its excess of coherence is what gives the illusion away. So I have put up two images over here. The first one explains the oligopticon and the second one gives us an idea of what he might be meaning by panorama. So in the oligopticon, you see a weather station and the weather station records observations through data, but then that is of a particular, a localized place. But then through several of these weather stations that are gathered, you acquire a more broader sense and each one precise in its own partial view, and therefore are able to generate maps like you see in the picture below. The thing is that these kind of maps, these kind of universalistic claims are giving the appearance of a coherent whole, but they are also, if you pay attention, made of these localized pieces of precise information. Now in that there could be localized places that are left out, there are gaps in it, there are readings that those instruments can't take, or there are only particular ways in which those particular instruments can read something. So these are the things that we have to pay attention to. That was the first move. The second move, he says, now that you've understood that the global is constituted of many locals, we come to the local. Now don't assume that the local itself is one independent entity sitting in one place. The local itself is constructed through associations that are far reaching. So you need to redistribute the idea of the local. I'll read this out, but before that I was also thinking, as I was reading through this, of Doreen Massey's book that we spoke about when we discussed her work, The Global Sense of Place, the one in which she looks at her hometown, a small town in the United Kingdom, and sees how this small town is made of associations that are located far away, like the kind of shops, the kind of automobiles, the ideas that drive people, the softwares that operate, and all of that, right? So even a local place has their action and their agency that is redistributed across many different sites. Let's read this. He writes, in many cases, it is fairly easy to establish some continuous connections that are open to scrutiny between the dreams and drawings of someone else at some other time in some other place, and whatever you and your students are now doing locally, face to face. This local site has been made to be a place by some other locus through the now silent mediation of drawings, specifications, wood, concrete, steel, varnish and paint. Through the work of many workers and artisans who have now deserted the scene because they let objects carry their action in absentia. Through the agency of alumni whose generous deeds might be rewarded by some bronze plaque. Locals are localized, places are placed. So he's giving the example of a classroom auditorium where a teacher is sitting at a podium and the students are sitting across. He says if I go to the archive, it is not difficult for me to get a plan maybe made 50 years ago that where an architect actually conceptualized in great detail through specifications, through specified measurements and all of that, what shape this auditorium would be, where you would stand, how the students would sit, how the acoustics of that auditorium would be built, and so on. And in some ways then your action today was already scripted, because it is already decided that this is where you would stand and give your lecture, and that is where the students would sit. And he goes on in much more detail. It took the work of so many artisans in order to create this academic sort of environment, right? So even though the auditorium is a localized place, it's a redistributed kind of action. It's action that dates back in time, and it's an action that is coming from many different places. Perhaps the architect was sitting in yet another town or in yet another country. So that is how he wants you to see the local. I wanted you all to also look at how our interaction, how our engagement in this online course is working with the idea of the local and the global. I am sitting in one room, a closed room inside IISER Mohali campus, and you are sitting wherever you are in front of your laptop. Mediating our interaction is the desktop in front of me and the camera in front of me, the lights falling on me, and the complicated softwares that bring all of this voice and sound together and voice and image together, and then send it to officials in the NPTEL who then work on it in order to make it accessible to you. And then you are sitting in a different room with your laptop in front of you or your phone in front of you, and our engagement, our social relation is mediated through all of these instruments, through all of these softwares, through the institutional networks that we inhabit, the grade coming from elsewhere, the online exams happening in a particular way. So just think about the possible engagements and associations that create this particular, that have momentarily come together in forming this particular social association, right? So that's how he's encouraging us to look at the social. Now, the third move, he says, is what we take as taken for granted structures like capitalism, like bureaucracy and so on, are not solidified structures but are circulating connectors. He gives the example of a mundane office file and how that the circulation of that mundane office file makes connections between all the relevant officials and solidifies the social relations or the social hierarchies or the bureaucracy that constitute that particular office in time and space. I have put up here an example combining his narrative and my own research, where you see certain files and certain storage systems, cabinets inside a government office, and then the movement of that and its connections to other offices where eventual decisions are made, budgets are approved, deliberations, technical deliberations, designs, all of that come together. Labor is mobilized, brought onto a site, and then infrastructure is produced at yet another site through materials coming from elsewhere, several different places, tools coming from several different places, the designs coming from several different times and places. And so what appears in my work as a simple object, as a simple artifact that we travel on, the road, is constituted through these various connections and circulations of people and objects and materials and ideas and designs, right? So in order to study the road, one is also studying these human and non-human associations. When I say non-human associations, I'm talking about the rocks that are displaced using dynamite and then broken down into small pieces. If you think of it, they were made in a very different geological era and then excavated from below, the depths of the mountain in order to form the base of the road. The workers that are working on those roads are seasonal migrant laborers coming from Jharkhand and Nepal. I have been following road construction laborers from Jharkhand, Dumka district in Jharkhand, to the upper reaches of the Himalayas now almost for a decade, and basically looking at some of Bruno Latour's, you are employing some of Bruno Latour's ways of doing sociology and anthropology, in the sense that I'm following the actor, and here the actor is the seasonal labor that is making the journey, the designs and ideas that are coming through files and office orders and budget approvals, and then the geological forces, the weathering agents, the snow that every year seasonally breaks the road such that the labor has to come again to reconstruct it, the heavy machinery, the simple hammer that breaks the stone, right? So all of that come together to constitute what appears just as asphalt, right? A piece of tar on the mountain road. So that's the idea in terms of how methodologically he wants us to study sociology, by connecting sites, by tracing these circulating connectors. He gives yet another example, that of a French woman, Alice, who's gone out to vote, and he says just yesterday she has seen a news clip. Over the last few weeks or months, she's been reading the newspaper. Through all of that, she's forming certain associations and therefore coming to a decision about who to vote for. And then he writes, in the opaque voting booth, Alice's opinion is transformed into a piece of paper, certified by her signature, and then placed by scrutinizers into a ballot box, where it is then ticked off as one anonymous dot in a tally, whose sum is wired to the Ministry of the Interior's Central Bureau to be merged inside other double-checked editions. What's the relationship between the small Alice and France as a whole? This path, laid down by this instrument, the simple ballot paper, and in the Indian scenario, we could argue the EVM, makes it physically possible to collect, through circulation of paper technologies, a link between Alice and France, whose exacting traceability has been slowly elaborated through 2 centuries of violent political history and contested voting reforms. We know from our lectures on feminist theory how long it took and the struggle that it took for women to gain the right to vote. So there is all of that history enabling Alice's ability or right to vote. Then there is the mechanism of the ballot paper. Then there are all of those ideas and thoughts that were generated as a result of the associations, let's say the reading of the newspaper, the listening to the news, the looking at local concerns such as availability of water and so on. So all of that come together to one small action, appears as a small action, as that tick on the ballot box. So Alice takes statistical information and other information from the media that she is exposed to, converts that into that tick, and then Alice herself becomes a dot in a vast amount of statistical information, and in that process the decision or the future of France is written out, right? How that happens, how these different local incidents or these associations are able to create the momentary association of the future of France's democracy, right? So that's kind of what he's trying to help us understand through this example also. Now, one of the critiques amongst many that he has received, and in fact this book, Reassembling the Social, I think I mentioned it before, was written as a response to the various critiques of actor network theory, or ANT or ANT as he sometimes might call it. And one of those critiques was that, is then everything networked? If basically social relations are a set of associations, then is everything part of that network, and you're arguing that the world is flat, so then are all those local places all then networked equally, and how is power operating? So there are several responses, and I think some of them became clear through this lecture, but 2 things I want to mention here. One, he's saying that the topography that emerges when you actually start paying attention to each of these local sites is not an even topography. There will be heights and there will be lows in that particular topography, but you've done the hard work of actually tracing those associations and then seeing what is higher and lower, and not assuming that there was something powerful, the state for example, already always out there. He says, think about the moments when the state actually comes face to face with the citizen. What are those moments, right? It is not the abstract idea of the state. It is the ballot paper, it is the water connection, it is the time when you go to pay the bill, when you file your taxes. This is how the citizen encounters the state. So these associations are what we need to trace. And the second point that I want to elaborate here is that some are solidified structures, like for example, the ballot box to the voting official, the electoral official and all of that. These are structures that have momentarily solidified, and so they appear as networks. But then there are associations or potential associations that have not yet taken shape, right? They also exist in our common world. That whole amorphous area that is not yet taking shape but has the potential of taking the shape of an association or a network, he calls that plasma. And he writes, I call this background plasma, namely that which is not yet formatted, not yet measured, not yet socialized, not yet engaged in meteorological chains, and not yet covered, surveyed, mobilized or subjectified. I have the last few slides where I want us to read together some passages. These are largely from his conclusions in order to bring together the set of ideas that we've been talking about in the past couple of lectures. So he writes, the alternative I have proposed in this book is so simple that it can be summarized in one short list. The question of the social emerges when the ties in which one is entangled begin to unravel. The social is further detected through the surprising movements from one association to the next. The social is normally construed is bound together with already accepted participants called social actors who are members of a society. When the movement towards collection is resumed, it traces the social as associations through many non-social entities which might become participants later, if pursued systematically. This tracking may end up in a shared definition of a common world, what I have called a collective. But if there are no procedures to render it common, it may fail to be assembled. And lastly, sociology is best defined as the discipline where participants explicitly engage in the reassembling of the collective. And this reassembling of the collective includes both human and non-human actors and mediators. He says, as a response to those critics who says that his work is not political, he says, in assuming politics, you are actually not being able to make a difference. He says, if there is society that is already there, then no politics is possible, right? Because you're already assuming it as an object that is already constituted. Then what change can you bring about? Further, he writes, each discipline is at once extending the range of entities at work in the world and actively participating in transforming some of them into faithful and social intermediaries. Thus, economists, for instance, are not simply describing some economic infrastructure which has always been there since the beginning of time. They are revealing calculative abilities in actors who did not know before that they had them. Sociologists of the social, as we have seen, have done much more than discover what society is. They have always actively engaged in multiplying the connections among actors who did not know before that they were related by social forces. And they have also offered the actors many ways to be grouped together. Psychologists are simultaneously populating the psyche with hundreds of new entities, neurotransmitters, the unconscious, cognitive modules, perversions, habits, and stabilizing some of them as routine parts of our common sense. Geographers are able to represent the idiosyncratic varieties of rivers, mountains, and cities and create a common inhabitable space by using maps, concepts, laws, territories, and networks. The same instrumental activities are seen in the language of linguistics. the history of historians, the cultural diversity of anthropologists, etc. Without economics, there are no economies. Without sociology, there is no society. Without psychology, there is no psyche. Without geography, there is no space. So how the discipline itself is constituting that which is the domain of their analysis historically. But he is asking us to do something more, which is what we spoke about in our previous slides. He is asking us to follow the ant. And so it is from his book that I have used this small cartoon clip. The first dialogue is in the 6th chapter of Proverbs. It says, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise." And then she says, "I tried that." The ant didn't know the answer either. So there are no easy answers. Sociology is in the method of tracing. It is in the method of following the actor. It is in the act of describing. Description too is a form of theory. That is where I'll end today's lecture. See you in my next. Thank you.